Welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video is going to be on accountability and ownership. That's one of the things that we struggle with in all walks of life is accountability and ownership, and it's particularly difficult when you find yourself on the other side of the law. If you've been living life in a way that's not law abiding, or if you have an addiction problem or anything like that. This, we talk about on the show, closer than it appears. High risk living is, your total collapse is closer than it appears. Well, when we don't own our stuff and we aren't accountable to our lives, we can find ourselves in a bind real quick. I've There's an example that I came across a couple months back, it's about 3 months ago, with JD Delay. He's a YouTuber. I think he's got almost 500,000 subscribers. Pretty powerful messaging. He's a lifelong criminal, but he's reformed, and he's spending his life to be hope and help with other people and be a peer advocate and those types of things. And he's a prison genre guy. He talks a lot about prison stories, but he also in his real life is doing a lot of work for good, for helping a lot of people find better ways and better days of doing things. So, I really enjoy his channel and some of the stuff that he's got going on. Well, he had a situation where he screwed up on his visit with, I think he's on probation. I'm not sure if he's on probation or parole. I think probation, but it was an interstate situation where he has a deal between Florida, where a lot of his charges are, and Oregon, where he currently lives. And they have vastly different rules in terms of what happens if you violate. So evidently he had missed a mandatory meeting. And if you've ever been on any post-release situation at all, you don't miss meetings with probation officers or parole. You just don't do it. And every state has a different way of dealing with that. Some states will give you a little bit of grace at first, but if they start seeing it to be a pattern, then you can pretty much count on yourself having sometimes very serious consequences, depending on the state and depending on, the demeanor of your probation or parole officer and what they're willing to tolerate and what they've seen in your behavior up to that point. And honestly, what they believe to be true about you. So JD Delay explains how he handled the situation. I'm going to share that with you right now and just use it as kind of a starting point for our discussion this evening. So he's describing how he handled what happened when he missed this appointment that he had. And it was a legitimate reason how it could have happened, but there's no legitimate reason when it comes to post-release supervision.
Wife and my kids and my dog, and to be able to continue to be a part of my community in a positive way. So missing this was a huge screw up on my part. I have zero excuse for that. So I have a lot of things.
So it's a huge screw up on his part. He has zero excuse for it. That's the first move you got to make in this stuff. If you're doing it, own it.
That are going on, but that is absolutely irrelevant. And that was exactly how I decided that I was going to handle it. I sent an email basically just admitting, which having that email would have been enough in a courtroom for a judge to say, okay, 100%, this is a violation. But I felt like it was important for me to take accountability. I live in recovery today, and living in recovery for me, my whole recovery is based on taking accountability for my actions.
So we've talked about this a number of times in the show, and I've mentioned where people get sideways when they start taking other people's inventories. What JD is describing here is a healthy version of recovery. It's not healthy to only take your inventory when things are going well. When you make mistakes, that's probably the most important for you, to go back through and see, what's going on with me? Why am I making these decisions this way? And what am I going to do to course correct that? What new tools do I need in place to ensure that I don't make these mistakes again? I feel like that was a powerful statement, and it shows to me that he's serious about what he's doing.
Owning my actions, being impeccable to my word, being true about the person that I am. And if I can't do that, then there's no way that I'm going to make it in recovery as a person with substance use disorder on the level that I have, bro. And the criminality that I lived in for so long, all of it's based on me being a stand-up dude these days. And I have to stand up and I have to take accountability for anything that I do.
Which is tough. Because especially when you're in a recovery situation, or if you've got a criminal history, you find yourself, qualifying what you're doing. I've seen this all too often, that we qualify, well, it's not that bad, or it's not like I used to be, or whatever else. But keep in mind who we're interacting with. People we're saying we've changed, so we need to change all ways. And honestly, I believe that we have to take that extra level of ownership and accountability that others that don't have our history, they have the luxury of not having to do that. For us to firmly demonstrate our capabilities in this new life, we have to supersize the ownership. We have to supersize the accountability. And when circumstance comes up, we are not striving for perfection. We're striving across these spiritual lines, as they say in the rooms. But the fact of the matter is we're not trying to be perfect. What we're trying to do is make sure that we own the areas where we fail and own the areas where we're successful and understand what's in our toolkit so that we can have a life that's more abundant than what we've known in the past. And sometimes it means we've made serious mistakes even now. We got to face those too. And that's what JD's describing in his situation tonight. Well, 3 months ago.
So, I tried yesterday. I left voicemail messages. I left emails. I tried again this morning for like 2 hours from like, I started calling at 8 a.m.
So this coming after a PO that way is really important to do that because their caseloads, at least in our area here in Western New York, the caseloads are pretty heavy. They've got big caseloads, especially we have bail reform here, puts a lot of people out on the street. So there's a lot of supervision going on, and these guys, it falls in their lap. And they've got a huge caseloads and not enough people and not enough skilled people that are following through on this stuff. So you can make you nervous when you're trying to get a hold of your supervisor, the person that's doing your supervision. It can be really nerve wracking trying to get a hold of them and wondering why they're not calling back. And, are you in trouble and waiting for, a couple patrol cars to show up and deal with you. So it can be nerve wracking. So these mistakes are honestly pretty stressful when you find yourself in these circumstances.
Because I didn't know what time a PO gets in, but I figured 8 a.m. is a good time to start trying, right? At 10, I finally called the actual PO's office, and the secretary, receptionist, babe, what's the lady who answers the phones at a PO's office? What is she called? Is it a receptionist?
I mean, I guess.
Why am I asking her? She's never been on probation. I called and I talked to her and I let her know what was going on. I just told her straight up, like, hey, so this is what I did. I missed it. I messed things up. It's really unfortunate, but it's all on me, 100%. And I'm wondering if there's any way to get in contact with my PO because I've been trying everything. And she said, well, yesterday and today, he's been working as the shift officer, so he wouldn't be at his normal phone.
So here's the thing. I'll see this. This is not only with people in post-release, but it's also people in recovery. So when you're in your recovery journey and you're having some slip-ups here and there, I find a lot of people isolate even further because they don't want to admit that they had another screw-up, that they had another reoccurrence. So rather than double back down, get back in front of your counselor, own your situation, take your urine screens, jump back into the fight, get back on your feet, put it behind you the best you possibly can, and oftentimes people will stay in use. They'll isolate even more from their counselors and the support that's there. It's not like the counselor has not seen what's going on. And usually when you isolate, especially in probation or parole, you isolate, they know for sure what's going on. Our behavior is the biggest tell about what's going on in our lives, not showing up to an appointment, admitting what we've done wrong, but our behavior beyond that, when we're not showing up, clearly indicates there's something going on. So we might as well just step up, face it, move forward, and put the issue behind us. And that sounds to me like this is how JD approached it.
Clerk, thank you. I appreciate it. The clerk. Is that correct? I don't know if that's correct. I don't want to disrespect the lady because she was super nice. And super friendly too, by the way. And so she said, he's here in this office, so he wouldn't have access to his other phone. That's why it's been going straight to voicemail. So I was like, okay, cool. Is there any chance that we can talk to him? And she's like, yeah, of course. So my PO immediately was like, you're good. You're good. I was like, I'm good. Do you want me to come down and pee? Nope. No, I can tell when somebody is on the stuff that you get on. And I was like, okay, well, do we need to reschedule? He said, no, just come see me next month. Which in my opinion, I don't think that he would have taken that approach had I not taken the approach that I took.
So I'm going to stop it there. I would 100% agree with what JD's saying. So, the point of the video tonight was to talk about accountability and, ownership over things. And so one of the mistakes we made in this, so many people make in this situation is they screw up and hide from the screw up and then try to pretend like they didn't know what happened. You heard what the PO said. He said, I can tell when people are doing certain things. They tell behavior. It's not about whether you make an appointment or not make an appointment. It's about how you're behaving. When I was on post-release supervision, I had some mistakes that I made through the post-release, but my PO gave me some grace because he understood the totality of who I was and what I was actually trying to do, what I was trying to accomplish. Now, there was some come to Jesus meetings. Don't get me wrong. There was early on in my recovery, I was on post-release and I had gotten hit with, a couple positive alcohol tests. And we had a tough conversation. He wasn't playing anymore. He said, I can't have you keep doing this. I'm going to have to take you off the street here if you don't stop. And that was enough to keep me going. So But those conversations had to happen. You can't hide from these things. Just like your counselors, you cannot hide from your counselors in recovery. You must own your business. I'm telling you, recovery is possible. Getting through these bumps in the road, it's 100% possible. If you've had 2 years of active use and you've been being slick the entire time and you're ashamed of it or embarrassed or whatever it is that's keeping you away, or you're afraid to go through precipitated withdrawal on Suboxone, or you're afraid to face your family and loved ones, break through that fear, run through that wall, and get on the other side. Because if you own it and face it, you have the possibility of having a better life. And you have to trust me on this, because I've been where you're at. I'm not talking to you, preaching down to you. I'm telling you, I've been that person that's been afraid to face it. And as soon as I turned, bit down on the mouthpiece, and walked through that fear, life changed. It changed. It changed dramatically. And it didn't require anybody else to do a darn thing. It required me to engage, to get in the program, to own my stuff, to have accountability, and accept the fact that people were going to be watching on my shoulder and keeping an eye on me, because I currently wasn't able to do it on my own. I was capable, but I wasn't able yet, if you can understand the difference. I wanted to share this tonight because I found this to be a very powerful example of accountability. I think JD is a stand-up guy from what I observe. He's not a friend of mine. I don't know him personally, but his consistency is what is a tell for me. His energy and his seems to be passionate about the well-being of others is important. To me, that looks like reformation. I can also understand how in active use, he probably is a complete crazy man. I'm a different person when I'm in active use too. So we fundamentally change, and that's what substance use does. It hurts us. And so I'm asking you guys, if you find yourself in a season right now where you've got to screw up, face it. Doesn't matter the consequences. Go bite down on that and figure it out. Brian Trejo is a Christian hip hop artist that I really think a lot of. He had an outstanding situation that he had to serve. He had a Christian ministry started. He was already well down the road in his hip hop stuff, and he had an outstanding situation that he had to take care of in Ohio that was time served. He had to serve time even after he was a Christian hip hop artist, because he decided that he was going to go back and face it. And instead of being 3 years, it turned into a couple months, and he was out. So by facing it, he put it behind him, and it wasn't anywhere near as grave as he thought it was going to be, but he faced it. He took ownership over it and accountability. Same thing with you. If you find yourself in active use and you're afraid to face people and you're afraid to go back to your counselor and you're afraid of whatever consequences there are, face them. I'm telling you, it's going to be far less grave by facing them and walking through that fear than it is if you just sit around and let it build. The longer you procrastinate on it, the more the consequences build, and the worse it's going to be, and the less grace you're going to get from those that you have to face. Face it now. Turn today. Right now can be your first moment. Literally, when you stop your use, or you face your post-release, or you face your spouse, or you face your children, you are immediately on your path to better days. No matter how much fire you have to face for that moment, you have immediately in that moment turned the corner, and you're already moving towards another direction, a better opportunity in your life. I would encourage you to make that move today. No matter where you are, face it, find the accountability, and deal with the pain of getting through that first bump, and that is facing it, that first hit. And many times you'll find out it's not anywhere near as bad as you thought it was going to be. Guys, I really appreciate you tuning in the channel. I hope this video is beneficial to you. If you find it's going to be helpful to somebody else that might be struggling with accountability, or they've got heavy issues they keep procrastinating and hiding from, have them look at the full video from JD Delay, or, watch this video and my commentary on it. Hopefully it encourages them to start facing their stuff and turn their life around immediately. You aren't going to get the whole journey right now, but you turn the corner and start facing a new direction immediately. It can happen right now, no matter who you are. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Share the video if you can. And between now and the next time we talk, please stay out of trouble.